Welcome to another episode of Chasing Labels. I'm your host, Stephen Billings, and with me is your other host, Andrew Cabral. What's up, man?
Doing good. Getting hyped for the show tonight. Getting hyped for the week ahead, I guess.
Hey, the World Series is coming up.
Very true. Very true. I don't know if you're interested, Stephen. When my teams aren't in it, my interest is lowered, but the cultural phenomenon of it all gets me interested.
This is the thing. Is you like a lot of different sports. You follow football, so you could move on to your other team.
Yeah.
And me, I only like baseball.
Okay.
So I like the sport. So I am a fan of the Baltimore Orioles, but like I still like baseball. So I follow I always root for somebody. So it looks like I know everybody cares about this because this is a baseball podcast.
Clearly.
But Arizona's gonna force to Game 7, so we're gonna have two Game 7s for our championship series this year, which is great.
Well, there's one going on right now.
One's going on right now, and last time I looked, Texas was winning.
It is 4-2, and this is as of 9:30 p.m. on Monday, the 23rd of October.
They care
just for those of you listening in the future.
They care nothing about any of this because this is Chasing Labels.
It is indeed.
It's Chasing Labels, spy number 121.
It is indeed. We are up to 121 episodes. We are a week away from All Hallows Eve, or Halloween, as they say. Stephen, I don't know if you've been watching some horror movies. I've been doing a little rewatching.
I'm trying.
I hear you.
I'm getting into my. Obviously, we haven't announced them yet, but I guess I can throw them on here for our unwatched pile next Sunday, on the 29th at 9 p.m. We're gonna have Celeste de la Cabra on, of course, and we haven't announced what our movies are, but I'll probably put a post out for it in a couple days. But I'm doing The Fly 2, not the first, not the big one. I've seen the original Fly. And I've seen the Cronenberg Fly, but I haven't seen the sequel to the Cronenberg Fly 2.
You're watching the sequel? For some reason, I thought you were watching the sequel to the original Fly.
No.
With Vincent Price.
The thing is that movie's called Return of the Fly.
Yes.
So I would have called it Return of the Fly. I'm seeing Fly 2.
Okay. All right. Just differentiate.
And then there's another one in there called Curse of the Fly, which is like not really related, but it's like... It's in the series, considered in the series. So like, I'm watching the other ones just because. So that's what I've been doing. I rewatched the original Fly. I watched Return of the Fly. I need to watch Curse of the Fly. I'll probably rewatch Cronenberg Fly just because I feel like it, and then I'll watch the new one that I haven't seen.
I was going to ask you, do you have that like Fly collection from?
I do.
Scream Factory? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Scream. Yeah.
So I was wondering how you were watching all these movies, but I guess I found out. That's what you've been doing.
It has to be in my collection. That's part of.
Oh, that's true. I forgot the stipulations.
Forget the fucking rules. Jesus.
I forget the stipulations of our own show. I'm going to be watching Haxon, which I think that's how you pronounce it. Haxon. I don't really know.
I say it faster. Haxon.
Yeah. Haxon. Haxon. There's an ellipses, I think, above the A on there, so I have no idea how to pronounce that. But anywho, it's the silent film. That was put up by Criterion on Blu-ray several years ago. It's been sitting in my watch pile forever. So I figured it's a horror movie that I want to watch, haven't seen. Yeah. I mean, it adds more to my history of watching silent films as well. So it checks all kinds of boxes for their show. So I figured I would watch that. And then Celeste, I don't think we know what her pick is yet.
We do.
Oh, okay, you do.
She told me she's been watching a lot of Hammer. So she wants to do a Hammer movie that she's going to be watching, The Kiss of the Vampire is what it's called.
Okay.
So
cool.
So yeah, all horror film themed, of course. So we'll be doing that. And of course, later this week, we should be dropping our Behind the Mask, Rise of Leslie Vernon interview with Leslie Vernon himself, and then the writer, David J. Stevie. So look out for that. But let's get into this week's very small slate of films. Not a lot to talk about this week, but we will get into it.
Like we said, not a lot. I think the big thing in this past week was, of course, the Criterion movies dropping on Monday. So that took a big chunk of our of what we would be talking about this episode, but there are a few more things. Smaller things right off the bat. I want to talk about Wellgo USA. I just might as well get into this now. So Wellgo USA is a company that has been around for a while, and they used to be the ones who released like the Phantasm movies on Blu-ray. I remember I think, were responsible for those here, and plus a bunch of other like um horror titles and whatnot. I think Phantasm has now. Yeah, I was gonna say I thought they moved over to someplace else, but no, they used to be put out by Wellgo USA. Um, yeah, Wellgo USA put out like Train to Busan in 4K. Um, they put out a couple of other movies like It Man in 4K. All like I said, all the Phantasm movies. Possessor.
Yeah.
Um, the I'm trying to remember whose son he is. Is that Cronenberg's son?
Cronenberg's sons. Yeah.
Yeah, Cronenberg's son. So you understand what I'm saying,
I think
like
it's
these types of horror films.
Is it Cronenberg or
Oh boy,
Brandon Cronenberg or
I think
something
it's
like that?
Brandon Cronenberg. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. His newest film, I still have to get. I still have to get Possessor. Actually, that
I still
reminds me.
haven't seen Infinity Pool. I don't.
Yeah, Infinity Pool is really good.
Yeah.
Mia Goth is incredibly crazy in that movie.
Okay.
But the movie I want to talk about is a movie called, I think this is a movie called The Wailing, which came
Yes.
out a couple of years ago. This is a 2.5 hour Korean horror film from 2016. Apparently, I'm just finding out about it now, or maybe I remembered it at the time and I just completely forgot to watch it. They're putting out a 4K UHD of it. And I'm going to read the premise here, but the premise really doesn't tell you all there is to be. So, a stranger arrives in a little village, and soon after, a mysterious sickness starts spreading. A policeman, who is kind of the main character whose story we're following, is drawn into the incident and is forced to solve the mystery in order to save his daughter. This movie is kind of like, how did I describe it, Steven? It's like,
You said it was like The Exorcist meets uh something else.
yeah,
So,
I forgot
I
about the
can't.
first part. Um, it's such a no, it's Memories of Murder
Yeah,
meets
memories.
The Exorcist. That's how I
Yeah.
described it to Steven before the
Yeah.
show. Because it initially starts out as like a mystery of what's going on. There are murders happening. There are people getting this disease and going insane and killing their whole families. What's going on? Is it supernatural? Is it a disease? Is it a virus? Is it something that could be demonic? So this whole film, it's kind of disassembling this mystery, and it's centered around this policeman whose daughter gets inflicted with whatever is going on. So now he has a personal stake in it. Like I said, the movie is 2.5 hours long, but I found myself not being drawn out of it, not having it drag, not having it, be too lengthy, and just really well acted, really, like disturbing imagery, gruesome imagery, all this kind of stuff that we've kind of been accustomed to when it comes to Korean cinema. If you're familiar with the films of Bong Joon-ho and Chan-wook Park and all of those guys and whatnot, it's that sense of graphicness in it, and it's really, really good. It Yeah, it's a movie that if you haven't seen it yet, it is long, like I said, but it's definitely worth it. It is streaming in many, many places, which I was really surprised to. It's streaming on Amazon Prime. It's streaming on Tubi, it's streaming on Canopy, it's streaming on Pluto, it's streaming on Peacock, Roku, everywhere basically, and it's really, really good. So that's something that I highly recommend. Let me go back to what else Wellgo USA is putting out. Yeah, they're putting out a movie called. Um, I think that was the only thing Wellgo is putting out. Hold on, I gotta scroll through.
You lie.
Yeah, also The Ghost Station from 2023, which is just a cool name.
Well,
I
yeah,
didn't get
yeah.
to see this, but there is a trailer um, on YouTube, and I want to make sure to say, yeah, The Wailing is coming out December 12th, and this is coming out December 19th, called The Ghost Station. After a young reporter co- covers a suspicious action, she learns from the police that her source was supposedly already dead at the time of their interview. As more mysterious deaths occur, she and her partner dig deeper into the case and come face to face with a horrifying truth. That sounds fascinating to me. it's,
Yeah.
it's dealing with this creepy, like unexplained. supernatural things going on. I don't know. That stuff just gets to me every time. There's another movie here by Well Go USA called Mercy Road, which is starring Luke Bracey and Toby Jones. Um, Luke Bracey is a name I haven't heard, Steven, in a long time. A
Yeah.
long time. I'm trying to think if this is the same person that I'm thinking of. Um, Remember that time there were? Oh, he was in the remake to Point Break of Point Break.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's why you haven't heard of him in a long
yeah.
time.
He was in. Apparently, he was in GI Joe Retaliation. He was in the November Man with Pierce Brosnan. I'm thinking of somebody else. Because there was a remember that time there were 2 Hercules movies? There was one with The Rock and then one with not The Rock, and they came out in the same year. I thought the star of the other one that's not The Rock was Luke Bracey, but it's not.
No,
Um,
it's that what's his name? Shit. He was a young Studley. He was in like one of them teen movies. I can't remember what it's called. Um,
Kellen Lutz.
Kellen Lutz. He was
Holy
in
heck.
he's in what?
No, like I can't remember. I remember that name.
Yeah,
He
Kellen Lutz. Wasn't
he
he
was in
in
the Twilight movies.
Twilight movies? Yes. Yeah.
That's what he was in.
Yeah.
So yeah, Luke Bracey, Kellen Lutz, just really handsome young actors who I don't remember whose work they're in. But Toby Jones, I know. Toby Jones has been in
Yeah.
like MCU stuff. He's been in so much stuff over the years. He was in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. He was in oh my goodness, he was even in The Hunger Games, The Painted Veil. So
Good.
many things. So
Good
many things. He
character
was in that
actor.
movie
Yeah.
Tetris. I don't know if you
Yeah.
saw that. Came out this
No,
year.
I haven't seen it. No.
But yeah, Toby Jones is I think a really great actor. But anywho, this is this movie called Mercy Road. It's let's see, what's the premise? After committing an impulsive, vicious crime while searching for his missing daughter, a frantic father, portrayed by Luke Bracey, goes on the run from the law enforcement and soon begins receiving chilling calls from an unknown entity claiming to know her whereabouts. As he faithfully follows the caller's increasingly unhinged instructions, he is driven perilously close to the edge of sanity while discovering exactly how far he is willing to go to save his child. This sounds like a combination of several films,
Yeah.
like that
Taken.
movie Lock with Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
Why am I thinking of Drive Angry? That movie with
Nicolas Cage
Nicolas
and Amber
Cage.
Heard. I don't know why.
Doesn't Nick Cage like fight a demon in that movie or something? It's been so long since I've seen it.
I haven't seen. I honestly, I haven't seen it
Oh,
yet.
that's a Nick Cage film you haven't
I haven't
ventured
seen
into.
that one yet. It's because I don't own it yet.
Gotcha. I think it came out in 3D. I know you're not a big 3D guy. Was that Drive Angry?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I remember when that came out in theaters. But yeah, that sounds like a combination of several different films. So yeah, that's Mercy Road. But then there's another film here which I thought was being put out by Well Go USA, but it's not. This is coming out November 14th on Blu-ray from Music Box Films. And this is an amazing indie film that came out this year that I just learned about literally yesterday. So here we go. So this movie is called Fremont, and it's set in Fremont, California. And so each morning, Danya, who's portrayed by Anita Walizada, leaves her tight-knit community of Afghan immigrants in Fremont, California. She crosses the bay to work at a family-run fortune cookie factory in San Francisco. Danya drifts through her routine, struggling to connect with culture and people of her new unfamiliar surroundings while processing complicated feelings about her past as a translator for the U.S. government in Afghanistan during the Afghanistan war. Um, she has insomnia. She can't sleep, so she goes and sees a therapist to kind of work through why she can't sleep. She initially goes there just to get sleeping pills, but then she ends up going for actual therapy sessions where trying to figure out what's going on. So she gets a promotion at work where she's now writing fortune cookies, the fortunes in fortune cookies, and that's like another thing that she kind of uses to, you know, excise whatever existential issue she has going on. This is an amazingly beautiful, subtle film. Think of indie films like Columbus, which I know Steven really likes. It has that beautiful subtlety in it. Think of movies like Jim Jarmusch films. This movie's shot in black and white. It's in 1:33 to 1 aspect ratio, so very indie, very close knit. And it feels like I was explaining to Steven, it feels like Columbus meets Amelie meets a Jim Jarmusch film meets the movie Ida by Paul Polakowski. Um, uh, it's something similar like that. Just someone going on this very subtle, not brief, but very subtle existential crises with they're just going on, and they
Yeah.
don't really know where their life is, what their life is doing, how they just live their life. She's an immigrant, so she's a fish out of water. She is both embedded in her Afghan community, but she also feels outside of it because she was a translator during the war. She feels like maybe she betrayed her people in working with a foreign government and stuff like that. So that's something she has to deal with. And then, she's just kind of living her life. It's kind of a slice of life film. Beautiful film, amazing film. I can't recommend it enough to people. Really, honestly, I don't think it's not quite streaming yet, but it is available. I think to rent. It's available to rent on like Vudu and Apple and Amazon, places like that. It may even still be playing in like small independent cinemas somewhere. But this is the movie called Fremont, and there's an actor who makes a cameo in the not cameo, small role, which people will recognize. Jeremy Allen White, who of course was in Shameless, and of course he's in that show The Bear, which just
Yeah.
had its second season. Small role in this film. Really surprised to see him show up in it. Great actor, great actor.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
also the lead actress is fantastic as well. It's not a flashy film, Steven. That's what's so beautiful about it is it's all subtle, all acting with behind the eyes, all acting in body language and looks and stuff like that. So it's a movie called Fremont, came out this year.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, really recommend it highly. I think that's kind of it for a lot of the one-offs. There is a documentary thing here called Mr. Organ, which is interesting to me. The only reason why this is interesting is because of this the director's previous work was kind of controversial, kind of out there. So, intrepid journalist and filmmaker David Farrier, whose previous film called Tickled. Do you remember that movie, Stephen?
Hell no.
Tickled, where it was basically like, you know, it was a documentary about tickling and what it does to like people and their brain chemistry and emotions and all this kind of stuff. Apparently, it became a global sensation for exposing the dark underbelly of competitive endurance tickling. Oh boy. Uh,
Okay.
faces off against his greatest foe yet in Mr. Organ, an enthralling, bizarre tale that finds Farrier in a dangerous game of cat and mouse with a mysterious con man who is wreaking havoc on his neighborhood. That's the only thing I know about this movie. It's coming out on Blu-ray November 21st by Draft House Films, and it's done by that guy who did the movie Tickled.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought it was important to maybe mention, just because it's a movie called Mr. Organ, and that can have so many
Yeah.
meanings, Steven, so
Yeah.
many. So yeah, that's fascinating. But yet again, this is all in the boutique label world. So let's shift to some other things now, shall we?
Okay.
Um, let's shift over to let's go to Kino just because they only had one announcement and we can get it out of the way really
All right.
quickly. Very quiet this week. Scary quiet.
Well, it's a calm before the storm.
No, probably so. So December 19th, we are getting a little bit of a TV stuff going on here with Monk the complete second season is getting released on Blu-ray. I know we don't talk about TV, but it might as well
It's
throw it in
Monk.
here. It's Monk. It's Tony Shalhoub. I know they just announced season one's coming out relatively soon, so season two is already ready to roll December 19th.
If for trouble out there.
Is that the theme
That's the
song?
song. Yeah.
I didn't even know.
It's the it got what's his name from Toy Story fame. Does
Oh
Toy
my
Story?
goodness.
Trying to think of his name. What's the fucking dude's name that does all that music with that voice?
I can look it up.
Elbow out there.
Just keep singing, keep singing. Toy
Yeah.
Story music. It's it's Randy Newman.
Randy Newman, yeah.
Randy Newman. You've got a friend in me, Steven.
Up upon the stars I see.
He's a legend, right?
Yeah, yeah. He's part of my childhood. You got a friend in me.
You do.
Can't do it, man.
Speaking of, I guess, Okay, maybe I guess a legend. Yeah. Speaking of a legend, and maybe two legends, depending on your perspective. There's this movie called Target, not Targets by Peter Bogdanovich, which I did get to rewatch this past week. The Criterion Blu-ray is very, very good. There's a 26-minute interview on that Blu-ray by um Steven, the director of Dazed and Confused, Richard Linklater.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
was gonna say, dude.
Yeah, my mind is gone, so
It's okay, man.
um
I'm like that all the time.
yeah. So Richard Linklater, 26-minute interview, basically about like the movie and its place in history and Peter Bogdanovich and just it's fantastic. It's fantastic. The movie's definitely worth the own. But Target, while having the similar name, doesn't have an S attached to it. Completely different movie. Completely different movie. This movie stars Gene Hackman, Matt Dillon, um, and it's directed by Arthur Penn. Arthur Penn, who directed Bonnie and Clyde, as well as some other films. And Target is a movie that is kind of an interesting 80s thriller, political thriller, I would say. Um, so Gene Hackman is like this kind of mild mannered small town guy or whatever, and his wife is going on a trip to Europe. But what ends up happening, she doesn't reach her destination. I think she's going to Paris. She doesn't end up reaching her destination, and he gets a phone call saying that she didn't reach her destination. So he and his son, portrayed by Matt Dillon, decide to go to Europe to find out what's going on. But it just so happens that Gene Hackman has a mysterious past as like a government agent and guy in like the CIA or some type of espionage group. So his past is coming back to haunt him. That's what it turns out. Some past job that he was involved in, the the person who was his target at the time has decided to kidnap his wife, and now he basically has to come out of retirement and go back to his old spy ways to get her back. And of course, the son doesn't know about his past, so he's discovering along the way. And they have a little fractured relationship going on already, so that makes it even worse. But now they're on this father-son adventure in Europe to try to track down the mother. So basically, this is taken with Gene Hackman in the Liam Neeson role.
Okay.
That's how I'm going to sell it to people. And yeah, that is the movie. And Gene Hackman's great. Matt Dillon's great. Matt Dillon's kind of overacting, I think, a bit in the movie, kind of over emoting and stuff. But this was a very young Matt Dillon.
Yeah.
This was this was like 4 years before Drugstore Cowboy. This was around the time I think that he was in Coppola's The Outsiders.
Yeah.
When he was in that film. Yeah, so it's a very young Matt Dillon in this film. And actually, this is after The Outsiders. This is after The Outsiders, after Fish. Yeah, so this is interesting. So that's kind of the premise of the movie. It's worth watching just if you're a fan of like 80s political action films. If you're a fan of Gene Hackman, it's kind of, and you're a Gene Hackman completist, definitely worth a watch. If you like Arthur Penn, I think, is an underrated director who did a lot of really good movies. I mean, like I said, he directed Bonnie and Clyde, The Miracle Worker, Little Big Man with Dustin Hoffman. Yeah, he's a really good director. So yeah, that's the movie Target, and I think that's pretty much it for Kino. Other than they're releasing Paint Your Wagon in 4K UHD, which I feel like we already
we talked about.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't even announce. Oh, you know what it is? They originally announced it as a Blu-ray only release, and now they're going to give it a 4K UHD and Blu-ray release. That's what this announcement is. Okay.
Okay.
It's a movie
for that movie. Okay.
Yeah, it's a movie with Lee Marvin, Clint Eastwood, and Gene Seberg, and I believe
it's not good. It's a musical.
It's a musical.
It's terrible.
It's called "Stake Your Claim to the Musical Gold Mine of '69." What a selling point that is.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember who directed that movie, but it doesn't matter to me. Directed by Joshua Logan, adapted by Patty Chayefsky. Patty Chayefsky is a great writer. Great writer. But moving on from there, Stephen, let's talk a little Mondo Macabro, shall we? Because we don't get to talk about them a lot. Because they don't release a lot of stuff. At least frequently. At least frequently.
Yeah.
But apparently they do have a Halloween sale that is on the horizon, and they had a little preview, like, early sale, this past Friday, which apparently sold very, very quickly. They had, I think, at least one exclusive for that, but they announced a
Death
bunch of
Squad.
releases. Yeah, Death Squad, which they had already announced on Blu-ray. There was a 750 copy, like, limited edition copies made, and I think they sold out within the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I was reading that, which is pretty damn fast. I don't know how you feel about that selling out so fast. Um,
They know somebody knows something I don't know.
Mondo has a lot of loyal
They
fans,
do.
but they did have some other announcements other than Death Squad or um, what's the friend Brigade de Mur is the title. I'd tell you this though, of all of the people that we cover, Mondo's movies are the toughest to find to try to actually watch.
Yeah.
They're so obscure, so obscure. But we've got two obscure films here. It's called the first one here is "It's Not Good for a Man to Be Alone" from 1973. Um, it says here Martin, played by Jose Luis Lopez Vasquez, a legend of Spanish film and theater, is a middle-aged engineer employed by a big shipbuilding firm in the northern city of Bilbao. Quiet, diligent in his work, and reserved, Martin is a model of respectability. His secretary, Monica, played by Helga Line, often asks about his wife, whom no one has ever met and who seems to be an invalid. Every evening after work, Martin returns to his big, gloomy house that looks out over the bay and towards the North Atlantic Ocean. When his colleagues and the world do not know, what the colleagues in the world do not know is what happens then. Behind the closed doors of his dark villa, for Martin's quote unquote wife is certainly not dead. In fact, he has a very unusual relationship with her, one that he is very concerned to keep a secret. Sounds very sinister. Sounds very sinister. It says here they're just giving us the whole description of the movie here. Uh, One day, a woman in her late 30s, Lena, moves into a rented apartment near to Martin's house. She has an 8-year-old daughter, Katie, who is allowed to roam free during the day. Shouldn't let kids roam free, as her mother works late in a nightclub in town and often has gentlemen callers. Oh boy,
Mm.
who tumble noisily out of cars in the middle of the night, much to Martin's displeasure. I'm guessing this Katie, who is a curious child with no friends and too much time on her hands, very quickly discovers Martin's secret, and equally quickly she discloses it to her mother, who decides to use it to her advantage. I feel like there's blackmail at play here. They move into Martin's house, soon followed by Lena's pimp, Moreau. Martin will be forced to take desperate measures to protect his quiet life and his quote unquote wife. Um, yeah, a dark, moody psycho thriller drenched in the mysterious, mist-soaked atmosphere of the old city of Bilbao. The film was a huge hit on its initial release and is now ripe for rediscovery as a lost gem of Spanish cinema. Um, the title of this film is taken from the Bible, apparently Genesis book 2 verse 18. Who knew? Who knew? But it's getting um this is part of actually two disc a two-disc double feature of films by Pedro Olea. It's called Secrets and Mysteries. And the second movie is called The House Without Frontiers, which I'm not going to read this entire 3-paragraph description here. I'm going to go to
Ah,
IMDb and
come
see if
on.
they see if they got something that doesn't give you the breakdown um of everything. Um yeah, so when it comes to, like, foreign films like this, especially ones from, like, the 70s, they're hard to find to stream. And not only are they hard to find to stream, they're hard to find to stream with English subtitles. That's the issue I always end up finding, is you can find them in their original language, but if you don't speak Spanish or whatever the language is, you're going to be kind of, stuck. So the description for The House Without Frontiers, or La Casa Sin Fronteras. Country boy Daniel arrives in the big city looking for a job. He meets an old man who hires him to find Laura, a girl who has been abducted by an organization called the House Without Frontiers. Yeah, that's a much shorter, little lean compared to
Mm.
um, what they write here. I understand they have to write a lot for their descriptions. Um, but yeah, so that's the two-disc release of um what I say Secrets and Mysteries, films by Pedro Olea. Next, we have Special Silencers from 1982. Special Silencers is it's an Indonesian cult film, chock full of crazy martial arts, unbelievably yucky special effects, a touch of black magic, and even torture by smelly shoes. That's the worst kind of torture, Steven. It's the worst kind.
It stink.
Apparently, this movie's never been released theatrically outside of Indonesia, and there was only an English version released on VHS in the Netherlands in the 1980s. Um, that's so it's one of those kind of lost movies, I guess, or maybe people had bootleg versions probably here and in Europe and stuff like that. Um, Yeah, it says the plot is simply simplicity itself. A corrupt politician in rural Indonesia wants to impose himself as the boss of the local territory. To do this, he has to eliminate the competition, as one does. As one does. To do that, he uses his special silencers, small red pills apparently intended to enhance meditative states. But when taken with food or drink, they erupt inside the victim's stomach and emerge through the flesh like ragged, blood covered tree branches. It literally has to be seen to be believed. I'm getting alien vibes here a little bit.
Maybe.
Um, the face huggers, the chest bursters, all that kind of stuff. Um, but they're called special silencers. That's fascinating. Uh, Moving on from there, I think that's when. Oh yeah, Dr. Jekyll and the Werewolf. This is a 4K UHD release. This movie is Oh man, I actually did see this. So, quite simply, the most crazed and delirious film of Spanish horror icon Paul Naschy. We've talked about Paul Naschy a few times. I think this is the sixth time that he's portraying a werewolf on screen. Is in this movie. There's been Paul Naschy collections put out by Shout Factory. They put out two of those. There's been other Paul Naschy films put out by others. I want to say Vinegar Syndrome, maybe Severin, maybe both of them. Can't really remember off the top of my head, but this movie is very interesting. So the premise of this goes like it's Paul Naschy plays this guy who he's a werewolf and he wants to kind of get rid of his werewolfism. So he decides to visit the grandson of Dr. Henry Jekyll from Jekyll and Hyde. But and so he can kind of cure his werewolfism. So this grandson of Dr. Jekyll decides that he's going to turn him into the monster and then give him so that the monster takes over his werewolf side or his werewolf genes or whatever, and then he's going to cure him of the monsterism, like the highness, and then that should get rid of his werewolfism. But of course it doesn't, and then chaos and murder ensue. There's a romance angle going on in the movie between the werewolf and some woman. It's not a very good movie. It's not very good.
Come
Like
on.
that's the entire plot of the movie is what I just told you. The only time it starts getting interesting is when like that starts happening. Um, yeah. So it's like a weird mashup of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde meets the Wolfman. All right. I mean, that's as best as I can explain it.
That's okay.
That's it. So we already talked about Death Squad, which apparently is like their most sleaziest film they've ever released.
Huh.
Which says a lot. Says a
That's
lot for Mondo Macabro. I know we've Stephen, we've talked with Jared Honor over there
yeah.
about Mondo Macabro and all the work he does and all the work they do. A lot of the releases that they put out, super small company putting out limited editions of films you've never heard of before. Really,
Yeah.
films you've never heard of. I know you have a couple of their releases.
Yes. I at the end of our interview with him, he had some suggestions of first time because at the time I didn't have any Mondo Macabro, so I took upon myself to get some of the suggestions that he gave, and I can't remember off the top of my head what I got. It was like
I
3
know
or
you got
4.
the one film which is only available on DVD, and apparently will only ever be available on DVD.
Yes.
Which is a fascinating story in and of itself. If you haven't seen our interview with Jared Honor, I believe is it on the
Some
Chasing Labels YouTube channel? I know
it's
it's
on
on
the
our
YouTube
podcast
channel.
feed.
It's
Yeah, super
both,
nice
both.
guy. Hardworking guy, obviously. I mean, like I said, it's like a 1-2 man show over there. I know he was recently on the Disconnected podcast with our buddy Ryan. He announced a few announcements over there last month, and then probably talked about all kinds of things. So special shout out to him and all the work they do over there. But now we can go over to, I guess, the only like official slate of the week, and that's Indicator, Steven.
Well, we do
Oh,
have
dude, I
one.
forget something.
Yeah. Oh, there's one that was announced today. The Arrow 4444
Oh yeah,
stuff.
you go through those.
Well, of
I feel
course.
like I'm talking too much.
Well, I mean, of course, I ain't gonna have nothing to say. I don't think you're gonna have anything to say about these because once again, it's another company that puts out very obscure things. But I see a couple releases here. I see one film called Run Kill from 1993. Not seeing any description here on the press on the release on Instagram here, so I don't really know anything about it other than it's limited to 2,000 with a booklet, 3 stickers, $36. Um, that's the only one
I have it up on IMDb. If this is
Okay.
indeed the movie, it says Run and Kill.
It says Run Kill, but I'm
Hold
not
on.
seeing an and. But
Let me go. Let me actually go to see what you're looking at. You're on Instagram. That's fancy.
no, it's
Uh,
Run and Kill. It is Run and
yeah,
Kill.
Run and Kill limited edition. It's coming with, I think, 2 different kinds of slipcovers, which are kind of cool. There's like a side A and a side B slipcover.
Yeah.
Both incredibly unsettling. Incredibly unsettling. I believe this is this movie. If it's not, I apologize. I just put Run and Kill in IMDb and looked for 1993 and it showed up. So it says to absolve a debt to a gang for accidentally putting a hit on his wife, a man goes and kills the gang's leader, leaving the leader's brother to seek violent retribution. Yeah, that's always the way, Steven. It's always the way.
It's rough.
Yeah. So this looks yeah, 1993. I was gonna say I didn't know if it was part of like that Hong Kong 80s run of movies, or if it was part of like um category 3 films or something like that. I'm not quite sure. But there's another. See, Steven, what's the other film we got here?
I'm not seeing another film.
Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to say it.
Yeah, you're gonna have to say because I don't. I'm looking for the other. There, I figured there was other
If you
ones, but
if you go on to Disconnected's Facebook page, it's the first post.
okay, I'm on his Instagram, so
Okay.
it's not there.
All right. So you want me to say it? I got you.
Go
I
for
feel
it.
you. This is a movie called Scissor Penis.
Well, I'm glad you said.
That's why I was trying to get you to say.
I'm glad you said it.
So,
but I will say it because it is
put
funny.
this in the old
Scissor penis. Yes.
I think. Hold on. Let me make sure this is the right movie. Because if you go on to IMDb,
Oh, I found it. Scissor penis. Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. If you go on to IMDb, there's only one movie with that title, and it came out in 2018.
I
And I have
wouldn't
no
know
idea if that's
anybody.
this movie.
It would it'd be hard for me to imagine anybody else would make another movie called Scissor Penis.
Yeah, I think this is it. Okay, so wow, they could really give you a pretty long. Okay, it's just a paragraph. So there is a man who wants to have sex, and any woman would do. Someone sounds a little desperate. His idea to get some is to become a married man. Okay, but
That's
ironically, his wife was
literally
only.
the opposite.
Yeah, I was gonna say, um, his idea to get some is to become a married man, but ironically, his wife was only into marriage and not the sex part. He becomes even more cross when she has an affair leading to his murdering her. He transforms into a creature who has 3 knives in the place of a penis. A club of nerds is climbing a mountain trying to meet this creature. They come face to face with the monster. That is the IMDb plot. If that is indeed this movie, it sounds like Tetsuo the Iron Man, but with scissor
With
penises.
penises. Sword penises.
Yes, exactly. Tetsuo the Iron Man is one of the craziest movies one will ever see in their lives. Just want to point that out.
Yes.
You can find it from Arrow in their lovely box set that Steven, I know you have, which I'm incredibly jealous of.
I do.
Um, it's that is the most metal movie I think I've ever seen. Um, but this movie sounds like that, except even even wilder. Yeah, and that box set is called Solid Metal Nightmares: The Films of Shinya Tsukamoto, um, which is available from Arrow right now. But yeah, that that premise sounds absolutely maddening.
I have to watch it eventually if I can get my eyes on it. I do want to watch this film, but I love the art. The art's
Yeah, I'll say the
amazing.
artwork in it is absolutely absurd.
I want a poster of this on my wall, and I want it to be like glow in the dark. Like it
It
feels
does
like
have
yeah,
those neon colors that you
yeah,
would think
yeah.
would glow in the dark.
Yes, I need this. But yeah, I think that is it of the Arrow 4444 stuff. So now we can move on to Indicator.
Right on, right
Um,
on.
from Scissor
So
Penis to
so we'll move
Indicator.
from Scissor Penis over to Christopher Lee film.
Ah,
We go.
fitting.
You know what? I think he would have approved.
He would
Uh,
have. I think
the
he would
man
have.
was the man
It would have been in the
was a
movie if
legend.
he could have.
Yeah,
Um,
man was an absolute legend.
yeah.
So, Stephen, we only have 3 films from them this time
Yes.
around. What are they?
So what we have a couple 70s films and a 90s film. From 1970, we have Impossible Object. Or I'm sorry, that's from 73. Impossible Object, directed by John Frankenheimer. We know that guy. Um, Harry, a British author living in France with his wife and family, begins an affair with Natalie, who herself is unhappy married to George. Uh, However, Harry is unable to untangle the facts of his life from the fictions which he creates. The line between fantasy and reality become blurred. Um, okay, sounds like it might be a little bit of a trippy romance. It's getting a new 4K restoration. It is going to be Region A, Region B locked. Um, it's Frankenheimer, man. I mean,
Yeah,
I that's the selling point, man.
all you need to tell me.
I mean, I'm there are certain directors that you just you get excited about hearing something that you've never heard of that they've done. And Frankenheimer's one, Sidney Lumet's another one because it's like he's so consistent that it's like, oh, here's another Sidney Lumet. I got to watch that. Well, same thing with Frankenheimer. He's worked in many genres, and he's just a very consistent, interesting director. So I will be picking this one up most definitely. Anything else about it?
It does have an alternate title. So if you go onto Letterboxd, it probably won't be under that title. It'll be under Story of a Love Story. Which is kind of an interesting title,
It's a
I
weird
guess.
title. Yeah.
It's a weird title. It's a John Frankenheimer film that I've actually never heard of. It's one that's probably sandwiched in between more notable works. Um, yeah, it's in between, maybe not in between, but it comes after like Grand Prix Seconds are 2 of his, better well-known films. Manchurian Candidate, Birdman of Alcatraz was early on in his career. His 70s work is very interesting. You've got The Horseman, uh, The Story of a Love Story, The Iceman Cometh,
Yeah.
99 and 44, 100% Dead. The French Connection 2. I forgot he directed that in
Yeah.
1975. No one talks about The French Connection 2 because the first film is regarded as such a masterpiece that it's like you don't you don't see a lot of sequels to Best Picture winners or Best Picture nominees. That just seems so odd to me. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's like that
Well,
there's a sequel to Chinatown called The Two
yeah.
Jakes.
Yeah.
Um, no one talks about it. I think
Yeah.
it's directed by Jack Nicholson, ironically,
Well,
and
isn't
starring him.
I mean, I think I think it happened a lot more often in the 70s and didn't In the Heat of the Night get a sequel?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. It has one. The Godfather obviously has a part 2.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's the exception to the rule, but I you don't really especially nowadays, like, there isn't
Oh,
well,
there's yeah.
I
We're
was
gonna
just gonna
get one
say
we're gonna get one for Gladiator.
yeah, which seems it still seems kind of odd to me. Which I
Yeah,
think they're filming now, or obviously there's a writer's strike, so they're probably not filming. But I was trying to think of like the last Best Picture winner I could think of that had a sequel, Silence of the Lambs with Hannibal.
sure.
I mean,
Lord of the
Lord of the
Rings.
Rings was a third film.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The Hobbits were
Um,
prequels to
hmm,
that, but I can't see a No Country for Old Men too.
that would be good.
And I'm like, yeah, it's an odd thing to me. Usually those don't get the same praise or the same notoriety or even are remembered as their originals are. But John Frankenheimer, great director. Yeah, later on in his career, he worked all the way up into the 2000s.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, 7 Days in May, I think is super underrated.
it's good.
It's a
Yeah.
movie that has a Warner Archive Blu-ray release. Highly recommend that. Always a big fan of Frankenheimer, but I've never seen this movie. Also, I could not find this movie to watch to save my life. It's not streaming anywhere. You can't rent it anywhere. Maybe there's a DVD of it, but obviously that's a moot point. Um, because this Blu-ray is coming out. So yeah, like Steven said, this is kind of going to be a blind buy, a blind buy slash a no-brainer for me as well,
Yeah.
because of the name attached to it. There was another John Frankenheimer film that I know got announced called The Horseman, but I can't remember who is putting it out. So I'll just say that the movie he did before this is getting a Blu-ray release, and this movie's getting a Blu-ray release as well. So you're getting double the Frankenheimer if you so choose to. But we have another film here. Well, no,
Yes,
the two films actually.
yes. So from 1970, we have The Man Who Had Power Over Women. Description: the dark side of swinging London is explored in The Man Who Had Power Over Women, starring Rod Taylor, Carol White, and James Booth, and Keith Barron. Womanizing talent agent Peter Rainey splits from his long-suffering wife, moves in with his best friend Val, and promptly starts a affair with Val's wife Jody. Added to the complexities of his personal life is his client, wayward pop star Barry Black, for whom he is asked to cover up a dark secret. Um, yeah, sounds sounds like fun.
So I did get to see this,
Okay,
and
is it fun? No.
kind of it's super misogynistic. I guess maybe purposely so because it's kind of depicting the swinging 70s, I guess, which doesn't even make any sense because I don't think that's a saying. Usually, I think it was called the swinging 60s, but it's kind of like a man living in a time that he's not supposed to be in. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like it's kind of like if Don Draper, well, actually, this ended up happening. Like Don Draper was trying to live the life of a younger man in like the late 60s, early 70s, which actually kind of happened in the show Mad Men. And it just seems odd. Like he seems like a fish out of water, really. Like he's super misogynistic, sleeping with his best friend's wife, who he's staying with because his marriage kind
Spoilers
of
for
fell
Mad
apart.
Men.
Well, that's not Mad Men. That's the plot of this movie. But I mean, Don Draper went through so many women in that show. My goodness. I think he had the new woman every single season, pretty much for the most part
Yeah.
in that show. Um, but in a way, I feel like Rod Taylor is playing that type of character. And there is a subplot in the movie dealing with abortion, and it's dealing with it in the late 60s, early 70s, at a time that's much different than ours now. Probably not as different as we wish it would be. But so it's dealing with that, but that's kind of brushed aside from more of like his relationship with his best friend's wife and all of that stuff going on. It's kind of a dry movie. It's not great. I think I gave it a 3 on Letterbox, whatever water that holds for people. Um, but it's Rod Taylor. I've always been a big fan of Rod Taylor. Rod Taylor, I think for me, is most notably in the movie The Birds,
Yeah.
where I believe, is Tippi Hedren's. Um, she's the man that he, yeah, she's the man that she goes to Bodega Bay to see. She's initially smitten by him, and she goes there, and I believe, yeah, his name is Mitch Brenner. And it's Rod Taylor. That's what I know him from the most. But he's been in many other things. He's been in he was Winston Churchill in Inglourious Bastards, the Tarantino film. I don't know if people know that. That's he was in the Time Machine, 101. He was the voice of Pongo in 101 Dalmatians, the Disney film.
I just watched that the other day.
Oh, did you now?
Well, I was showing it to my daughter, and she loved it. She likes seeing all the doggies.
That's a seminal film for me.
Yeah, I love that movie.
I still have the VHS somewhere. And watched it like
the animation in that is just amazing.
That beautiful, yeah, the hand drawn animation.
Yeah.
Also, Cruella de Vil is probably one of the most evil Disney villains ever.
Until Emma Stone did it.
Until they tried to redeem her with Emma Stone.
Why did they do? Why do they feel like that?
You can't redeem that, Steven. I don't care how nice Emma Stone is, or how messed up Emma Stone's character was in that movie, or how they tried to explain that. Man, you can't. There's no explaining away that.
They feel this need to like make you sympathize with these bad people. There's sometimes just bad people in the world. We don't need to, confuse people by thinking we should feel sorry for them. No.
Sometimes evil is something that's interesting because it's probably as human a trait as goodness is. As crazy as that sound. You know what I mean? Like, humans are very complex individuals, and they have both the great capacity to be incredibly kind and incredibly evil. And it really all depends on who that person is. It's really fascinating. Kind of a little sociology experiment there, but yeah.
It's actually not a bad movie. I kind of enjoy the Cruella movie, but
I didn't say I didn't like it. I'm just saying, like, trying to redeem that character from what we know where she becomes. It's pretty hard.
She eventually kills, Dalmatians and dogs.
Yeah, she wants to kill dogs to make fur coats out of their fur. I mean you can't.
There's no getting around.
There's no getting around that. No getting around that. But I don't know how we got on that.
I have no idea.
Oh, because Rod Taylor was the voice of Pongo.
Yeah.
I always wanted a Dalmatian because of those movies.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah. So Rod Taylor's in this swinging bachelor movie, where he's sleeping with his best friend's wife. But we do have a third film here, which is completely different than these first two.
Yeah.
Completely different.
So Christopher Lee, he seems to just show up a lot in the boutique side here.
What a legend.
Severin likes to put out a lot of Christopher Lee. He just pops up everywhere. So Christopher Lee in a film called Jinnah. I guess that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, Jinnah.
But Christopher Lee stars as Jinnah, an epic drama from the life of Pakistan's founding father, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, directed by Jamel
Delave.
Yeah. Exploring Jinnah's journey from political isolation in the Indian National Congress to his leadership of the Muslim League, and from his controversial fight for a Muslim homeland to the partition of India. This ravishing and enthralling film examines the founding of Pakistan as well as the bloody aftermath. So, yes, this is you could say controversial casting.
Yeah, it's a very controversial film in general. Yeah. Which I think makes a lot of sense. Obviously, that part of the world has a rich history of complexion, especially within the last century, which is where this takes place.
One thing to note, though, even though it's controversial that Christopher Lee's playing a Pakistani person, the film is directed by a Pakistani person, I believe.
I believe it's someone who is, I think, half French, half Pakistani.
Okay, either way, they have heritage there, and it's like. It's like the choice, I think, is... I mean, a lot of times these choices are made because they want to sell the movie. It's not really that they're like, oh, Christopher Lee would be the best to play a Pakistani person. It's like they got to sell the movie. So actors have to be actors and play other people from other cultures. I mean, of course, sometimes it's like borderline like, okay, what are we doing here? But, that's... essentially why a lot of times this whitewashing or that's why it happens. Um, and I'm not like trying to defend it. I'm sure if they would have looked hard enough, they could have found an adequate actor to play this of the right ethnicity. But um, it depends on the circumstances, the budget. Like um,
Well, yeah, whitewashing has been part of movie
it
making
is.
pretty much since its beginning.
Yeah.
It goes all the way up through this day with issues and stuff. It's only been most culturally relevant now is because people are finally being like, "Hey,
Hey, what the hell?
hey, what the hell? Why don't we find a an actor who is part of that culture, part of that heritage, who would be more appropriate for it?" Because the pool of actors and actresses now is so much wider than it's ever been before. I mean, in terms of Hollywood,
Well, the
they've been lazy.
well
They've
the
been
net well
real
the
lazy.
networking is there too. Like
Yeah, it's like
we can connect with anybody and find anybody from any background
yeah,
that
and
we want now.
we should. I mean, I say this like with ideal eyes, you should be able to find a culturally appropriate actor or actress for any type of role that you need them to find because the world is so wide, the net is so wide, like you were saying.
Yeah,
I mean, there's no excuse for it now.
yeah,
There was
there
probably
really is.
never an excuse for it other than being racist and culturally biased.
Yeah.
But now we should be moving past that. But of course, racism and bias and all that stuff still exist.
Well,
But
but the
yeah,
point I was trying to make was that it's all there is a racism angle obviously to it, but it's like also there is a business angle, which is that the reasons they go for these people too is that these people have clout.
well,
People know
that's the
people
same
know who.
argument that Ridley Scott made when
Yeah.
he made that. What was that movie he made? Um, was it Gods of Egypt?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The one with Christian Bale and where they play the. It's not Gods of Egypt, but
Oh,
it's
why am I thinking of Gods of Eden? Because that was oh, that was that
that's
awful
the
movie.
Alex
That was the
Proros.
Alex Proyas film, which
Yeah,
was not
that's
good.
a weird one.
That
Um,
was not good. That movie had an interesting cast in it.
you're thinking of his Noah film, right? Or not
No, that was
Noah, but
Aronofsky.
Moses, or was it Moses?
Let me look up Ridley Scott. Even though this could take forever, because Ridley Scott has at least 2 films
It's
coming out every
Christian
year.
Bale and what's his
Wasn't it
name?
Joel Edgerton?
Joel Edgerton. Yeah. It's a Moses or yeah, it's a Moses movie.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm just trying to figure out what the name of the movie was. Let's see. It was where are you?
Splendid
Exodus,
Exodus.
Gods and Kings.
Yes.
That's what it was. 2014, where it had Christian Bale playing Moses. It had Joel Edgerton playing Ramses. Ben Kingsley was in the film. Sigourney Weaver, Aaron Paul, John Turturro, Ben Mendelsohn. Um, I mean, on paper, what a cast, but also maybe
Just
not the most appropriate.
yeah.
But I believe they did hit him afterward, doing the marketing for that movie, and he was basically said, I can't sell this movie without having like Christian Bale in it or something like that."
It's a tough
And
and that's the only point. That is the point I'm trying to make. It's
yeah,
for these guys that want to make tell these stories. The people with all the money are making it harder and harder, and the only way that they see that they can sell the movie is with the right actors in it. Like
mm,
and if there is, unfortunately, our our business doesn't hasn't been shining enough light on other actors from other cultures that they ain't able to be exposed enough to be what you would call quote unquote popular.
right.
So
Yeah,
it's
unfortunately, that is a sad case that only a few really, make it through whatever boundaries that they have in the movie production world or just entertainment world in general. Um, and so that's why you get Christopher Lee playing Jinnah.
yeah,
And I'll say this: what is interesting about this movie is that it came out in 1998. And I was like, and when I first heard that, they were putting this out, I thought this was an older film. I was
yeah.
like, oh, this is Christopher Lee maybe back in the 70s. No, this is Christopher Lee later on in his career. I mean, um,
Shit, he was just about to film Lord of the
I
Rings.
was gonna say, like Lord of the Rings came out in 2001 was Fellowship of the Ring. 2002 was episode 2. Attack of the Clones, where he would play Count Dooku. So this was right before like we would be introduced to him as he
Yeah.
when we were young, you know. But he said that this was actually like the best, like best acting performances of his career was in this film. That's what he said. I did get to see this movie actually. I did get to watch it. It's an interesting film if you know of the history of the founding of not only Pakistan but India at the time. This movie primarily takes place in the mid 1940s, 1947, 1948. Because I believe Jinnah, the actual real life man, passed away. I think in 1948. He was only um, I think he was only like head of Pakistan for 1 year before he passed away, and it's kind of interesting how you know the timing of all of that. It's also interesting that if you've seen the movie Gandhi with Ben Kingsley, which I just mentioned, the person of Jinnah is in that film as well. Someone playing him, I don't remember who, because Jinnah and Gandhi had, you know, not a rivalry, but they were advocates for different people at the same time in the same place. Being India, trying to get independence from Great Britain, trying to trying to make their own country. India becoming basically a Hindu state, and then Pakistan becoming an Islam state. State for Muslims and stuff. This movie is interestingly structured. It's structured kind of like the Ernst Lubitsch film Heaven Can Wait,
Mm.
where it's about somebody who's already passed away and is in the afterlife and is looking back on their lives. I think that's how Heaven Can Wait is structured. But anywho, that's the structure of this movie. Is you get Christopher Lee as Jenna in the afterlife being shown his life by some type of person in the afterlife. So it's all done in flashback, like goes back to when he was younger, flashes to when he was older, kind of jumps around in terms of his life's timeline. So it's not a birth to death biopic or anything like that. It's mostly about the political career of Jinnah, kind of from the 20s all the way up through his death in, like I said, like 1948 or so. Um, so structurally it bounces around a lot, but it's good. But I feel like if you don't know a lot of the political history that was going on around that time in that area of the world, you may be a little lost on who is who and what the motivations are and who's doing what. So you almost kind of need like a history lesson going into this movie to kind of appreciate it for what it actually is going for. Um, yeah.
Hmm.
But Christopher Lee is always as great in the film, like I said, and he he led a very interesting life. If you know about Christopher Lee, we've talked about him so much because so much of his work, like you said, Stephen, has been released by a lot of these boutique labels. Um,
Yeah.
it's just great. Yeah, it's great just to get more of his work in general. I think on Blu-ray. Um, yeah, so this is an interesting release. This is region free. I want to make note. This is region free. The Man Who Had Power Over Women is region A and B, which kind of makes it region free if you think about it. The Impossible Object or Story of a Love Story is region A and B, so you're getting both. They're getting both the UK release and a US release of these two films of Jinnah and The Impossible Object or Impossible Object. Yeah, so very short list. These are the January releases from Indicator. If we didn't mention
Yes.
that, um, Steve, do you have anything to add?
No, I just once again, it's always nice to see, of course, things that we've never heard of. And the Indicator does a good job of just scrounging up stuff, man. They do that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I have a few things to add here at the end of our episode,
of course you
as
do.
I always do. So Cross of Iron, which we feel like we've talked about that movie incessantly over the last few
Yes,
months,
a lot.
is getting a standard 4K release from Studio Canal, which is interesting because they literally just released their limited edition of that. The Terror getting a Blu-ray release from the people over at what's their name, Steven? Filmmasters. We have all the specs on that release, which is coming out on December 12th. It's going to be region free. It's going to have a brand new restoration, and you also get the the Little Shop of Horrors film in there as well from Roger Corman. The reason why I want to mention that is because Roger Corman did a video inside the Criterion Closet recently, which was really awesome to see. He pulled out a couple of films that he was directly involved in, and films that were a bit of his favorites. It's nice to see him get his due in there. Yeah, I think that's about it.
All right.
So we're good.
All right, man. Well, that is it for Spy number 121. Please remember, we got another Unwatched Pile coming Sunday. It's just not our usual day for an Unwatched Pile, but, we wanted to get it in before Halloween. So Sunday, the 29th at 9 p.m., please come see us live. Chime in, talk with us while we talk about some of our first-time watches and talk about and pair them up with some stuff. So that'll be fun. And Andrew, where are you at?
You can find me on Twitter or X at Capzilla06, as well as our YouTube channel, Chasing Labels. Like Steven said, On Watch Pile is upcoming, as well as our interview with the guys from Behind the Mask. That'll be up on video on there as well as audio. Yep. We'll have that on our podcast feed as well as our YouTube channel. So yeah, those are the two places.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings, or at our Facebook group over there. You can talk with me and Andrew. You come over there, we'll let you in. And then you can find us at our X. I'm at the X page and our Instagram. You can find me. You can contact me over there. And you can find me, find the audio for the podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and other places. Thanks again for listening. And hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.